Well, old J4 here got a interesting article. This is actually every great once in a while I'll see something over here that is good, it's interesting to read. And that is wolfstreet.com. Housing bust 2. Subprime no down payment mortgages surge. Shadow banks dominate, by Wolf Richter. Is that Richter? October 25th, 2016. Just when you thought those days were over, not so fast. Some of the same characters that played leading roles last time. The value of the U.S. housing market has ballooned to $26 trillion. In many markets, prices exceed even the peak of the prior house price bubble that blew up so spectacularly. This construct is weighed down by $14 trillion in mortgage debt, or about 76% of U.S. GDP. Of that, $10 trillion is owed on 1 to 4 family residences. The numbers are big and they matter. But who's doing the lending? More and more non-banks. Evocatively called shadow banks. They have now overtaken commercial banks to grab a record slice of government-guaranteed mortgages, Atom Data Solutions reported in its housing report. And these shadow banks are different. They typically borrow from Wall Street hedge funds, private investors, or banks to make loans, then quickly sell these mortgages to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and other buyers, so they can repay the loans and start the process all over again. Non-bank lenders dominate the origination of mortgages insured by the Federal Housing Administration, or FHA, and by the Veterans Administration, the VA. The riskier corner of housing lending due to no down payment or low down payment loans for credit buyers. So subprime mortgages with low or no down payments. Boy, this, I don't think we're going to see a repeat of 2008 again. Not with this kind of stuff happening. No. These government entities don't actually make the loans. They buy loans from lenders, package them into mortgage-backed securities, and guarantee them to make investors whole if the mortgages default. So again, they have a guarantee that will make you whole again if anyone defaults, any foreclosures start happening on all of our securities. That's the same thing that they talked about last time around. And AIG had to be bailed out because so many of these banks were going to go belly up in a hurry because this one guaranteed that one guaranteed that one, Daisy Chain guaranteed that one. And ain't none of them, not even the first guy or the last guy, had enough money to deal with it. So what do they say? That's okay, we had insurance through this company called AIG. And AIG said, excuse me, but we don't have those kind of funds. And they said, no problem. We're going to go to the government. We're going to make an offer they can't refuse. You're going to bail out us banks and AIG so we get bailed out? And we won't cause the destruction of the world economy. And the government said, sounds like a pretty good option. I think I'll go ahead and take that. And they did. So are you telling me that these people didn't learn anything because their mentality is now, we did it last time and got away with it, and we had to borrow and steal and print a whole bunch more money, right? Our national debt's now doubled. So now if any of these entities go down, they're even not just too big to fail, too bigger to fail because they're even bigger now. There's much more on the line. So they say, how are we going to make some money around here? We want to make some money. We want to give out bonuses. do what we did before. The government has our back anyways. No docs, low, no down payment, all that stuff. Do it again. So that now we've got whatever they call this, the shadow banking industry taking over what the too big to fails did. These government entities don't actually make loans. They buy the loans from lenders, package them into mortgage-backed securities, and guarantee them to make investors whole if the mortgage is default. Wells Fargo is still the largest mortgage lender by far, with 26,262 purchase mortgage originations in the second quarter, according to ATOM, or ATTOM. But number 2 is non-bank Quicken Loans, with 18,753 originations, followed by Caliber Home Loans with 13,580 originations, followed by one of my favorite banks, Bank of America, Fairway Independent Mortgage, and then I think maybe my favorite bank, JP Morgan Chase, Movement Mortgage, Prime Lending, Guaranteed Rate, and Guild Mortgage. Of these top 10 originators, shadow banks originated 63% of the mortgages. These shadow banks are barreling into the market by going after riskier borrowers in government guaranteed no down payment or low down payment mortgages with impeccable timing. Now that the Fed's monetary gyrations have inflated home prices nationally past their prior bubble peak, and in many markets far beyond the prior bubble peak. Now, I'm going to stop here for a minute. This isn't everywhere across America. Certainly is not high-end housing, as I've been discussing not over the last few months. That is pretty much game over. High-end housing is like finished. So, as the Webbot said, you're going to see high-end housing go first, then normal housing as far as prices go in decline. So you have to remember something. The Federal Reserve understands very, very, very well that their near 0% interest rate policies have absolutely destroyed the savers, which are the pensioners, the retirees. Okay, that's who's being absolutely destroyed, especially the pensioners, because their whole system depends on an average of 8% a year, and this is our calculation. And if we even get 7.5%, we're all of a sudden going to be unfunded. Like, it won't even work. We can't sustain that. And not only can we not sustain it, if it goes back to 8%, everything isn't good again. We still have to deal with the backlog, if you will, the back payment of when we had 7.5%. So now we have to find out ways to get more money back into this pension, or chase yield, as they say. So you have these banks saying, "Oh, we have the federal government backstopping this now." So again, I'm an institution of any type. I can originate loans to any Tom, Dick, or Harry, as they say, who shouldn't have a house, just like last time. We're going to get them into a house, just like last time. They're not going to be able to afford the house, just like last time. And they will default, just like last time. But we have the FHA and federal government insuring us. So why do we care? We got to work, we got to get paid, and that's all that matters. The music continues, the party keeps going. So they're banking on the fact that, well, if it's government insured, the government, it's not like it was the banks, the big banks, the too big to fails that had AIG and had some other, insurance companies that were supposed to bail them out, but there was so much money involved, they had to go to the federal government. Now, what this is saying is the insurer essentially is the government. So the government's not going to have to take backlash from other citizens. Hey, well, you're bailing out the banks again. No. We are the insurance company. We're going to bail out ourselves. So I've mentioned this not too recently, but recently enough. Fannie and Freddie Mac may have to be bailed out again. I mean, look, I can go right to Google. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac may need another bailout. May 24th, 2016, will Fannie and Freddie need another bailout. Wall Street Journal, February 21st. Fannie, Freddie may need another bailout as Washington drags feet. August 8th, a little more recently. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac would need another bailout. And, oh, this is an interesting one. First, that was February. August 23rd. Fannie and Freddie need another bailout. National Real Estate Post. Let's go to Housing Wire first. August 8th. That was this year. In other words, well past that February I was just talking about. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac would need another bailout in severe economic crisis. Stress test shows severely adverse scenario would lead to further treasury draw. Only a severe scenario. So in other words, this is highly unlikely, not going to happen. We're in recovery mode. Everything's fine. Unless the entire time they've been lying to us and giving us these fake numbers to make you think that everything's fine. Again, when I look at the national debt, that's what's telling me everything ain't fine. You don't go just 8 years ago from 9.767 trillion to almost 20 trillion now and tell me everything's fine. Severely adverse scenario, not likely. No, I think it's actually highly likely. You know, so last week, Freddie, and this is from then, Freddie and Fannie Mac disclosed a profitable second quarter earnings report and will therefore send $3.8 billion to the Treasury Department later this year under the terms of the preferred stock purchase agreements that went into effect when the government took the GSEs into conservatorship. Under the PSPAs, Fannie and Freddie send dividends to the Department of Treasury each quarter that they are profitable. But under the PSPAs, the GSEs are prohibited from rebuilding capital. In each of the GSEs, capital base is required to be reduced, with their capital reserve scheduled to be drawn down to $0 in 2018. Interesting. Combine that dwindling capital base with a severely adverse economic scenario, and the GSEs could need as much as $125.8 billion in additional funds from the Treasury to stay afloat, the FHFA reported Monday back in August. So, $125 billion, how does that sound? Again, AIG couldn't come up with those kind of numbers. And do you think around the corner we might have some adverse economic conditions? You know, once the truth starts coming out a little more, the Federal Reserve is going to have to raise those rates ultimately. They understand we can't keep this going for too much longer because we are destroying the pensioners, and then we're going to have a whole other mess on our hands of dealing with those people. And we don't want a bunch of, as the webbot said would happen, a bunch of gray and white-haired people rioting and protesting in the future of this country. Which might actually tell me maybe the Federal Reserve's not going to raise rates. They're between a rock and a hard place, and no matter how bad they want to, they realize they just can't. So the pensioners will just continue to get stiffed and stiffed and stiffed. Only time will tell. Time for the video number 2. Number 1, number 2. Number 2.